What is going on, football fans? This is the Air It Out podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. My name is Juan Pablo Gordon Camargo, and I am joined in a call filled with football experts. I got Avery Collins to the bottom of me, and returning for one day only to the Air It Out podcast, the enemy of Mr. Avery Collins, the host of the Running Back podcast on 98.5 Philly Radio, Mr. Christopher Thomas.
What's going on, man? Glad to be back. How you been, Avery?
I'm good, man. Glad to have you back, sir. You know what I mean? It should be a good show. Entertaining.
Hey, man. Look like you've been miserable without me, man.
Miserable? Not really, Chris, considering that you always comment all of your notes of what you say during our other shows. So you always have a presence here, even if it's not fully here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, it's been an exhausting week on so many levels. I'm not even going to touch on what's going on outside of the football world. I'm going to keep it strictly to what is happening on the pigskin. So with that being said, before we get started, how you been, Chris? What's been going on with you?
Oh, man, I've been good, taking it one day at a time. Like you said at the top of the cast, I have my own radio show now, so I've been, trying to focus on that. We're getting a new logo at the end of the month for our 1-year anniversary show, so I'm actually really excited for it, and I'm actually glad to, just be back with you guys, chalking it up. And, Juan, I got a question for you. Is Julio Jones a topic at all for the show?
Unless you bring up Matt Ryan later, but I'll keep a little hint.
Julio will get mentioned every time this podcast is aired, okay? And he's going to get mentioned more than Antonio Brown. How about that?
Are the Falcons on a bye this week?
No, we are not.
Then he will be talked about because if sooner or later, either one of you two is going to bring it up. In the meantime, let's just get this ball started. Let's head into the rundown. And first thing on the rundown, there is a slew of COVID/reserve moves happening today. And you know what? There's just so many to go over. I'm just going to read them off like a listicle, if that's okay with you guys. First off, Eagles safety Marcus Epps tested positive for the coronavirus. Texans linebacker Jacob Martin tested positive for the coronavirus. Bears center Cody Whitehair also tested positive for the coronavirus. And then a slew of 49ers wide receivers have either tested positive or have been in close contact with someone that tested positive. They include Kendrick Bourne, Brendan Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, along with left tackle Trent Williams for the 49ers. In terms of close contact being moved to the reserve list, we have defensive lineman Chris Jones, who was in close contact with a chief staff member that tested positive for the coronavirus. We have Whitney Merciless and Dylan Cole, both linebackers who were in proximity of Jacob Martin, also on the reserve list due to close contact with the guy. And Matthew Stafford, whose COVID situation has been kind of a roller coaster, not only in this season, but in the offseason after he was falsely tested positive for the virus. He might actually play on Sunday without being able to practice because of COVID regulations. Obviously, COVID in the NFL has been kind of a roller coaster ride for a lot of us, and it is something that the league has tried its best to monitor. But we always know there will always be crack in the armor, no matter how well you're protected. Moving on to our next bit of news is that after a relatively silent trade deadline this week, veteran players have been cut. San Francisco released wide receiver Dante Pettis, who was then picked up by the Giants. The Bears released veteran wideout Ted Ginn Jr. earlier Thursday, and he's still on the market. But the most significant piece of news, defensive end for the Tennessee Titans, Vic Beasley, has been cut from the Titans. Now, the former NFL sack leader from 2016, he signed a 1-year, $9.5 million deal with Tennessee, but he missed most of the offseason for some bizarre reason. He just disappeared. No one knows where he went. And his work ethic has been called into question, not only in Atlanta, but in Tennessee as well. So much so, he only had 2 tackles and 1 forced fumble in 2 games that he dressed up for with Tennessee. Then going down the south, the Texans The Texas star pass rusher J.J. Watt has looked absolutely drained this season. The 31-year-old said on Thursday during a press conference, quote, "I don't think it's any secret that I don't have 10 years left in this league. I personally believe that I do have a few more great ones left in me, but I'm not looking to rebuild. I'm looking to go after a championship, and that's what I want to do." Watt has 2 years left on his contract with the Houston Texans, and his name was one of 4 that the Texans barred from trading during the trade deadline. And finally, just a little nice little wrap-up news to go into. The Texans have signed Eagles quarterback Josh McCown to their practice squad. The 41-year-old signal caller is joining his 12th NFL franchise. He was last with the Eagles last year. Before that was the Jets, the Browns, the Buccaneers, the Bears, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Lions, and he was drafted by the Cardinals back in 2001. In his career, he has 17,731 passing yards, 98 touchdowns, 82 interceptions, and a career completion percentage of 60. And guys, that concludes today's rundown. Before I ask you guys for your thoughts on these stories, I just want to go ahead and introduce our last piece of the puzzle for tonight's game. We all know him. We all love him. Mr. Big Trust himself, Mr. Darren Braxton.
What's good? What's good?
Well, got here just in the nick of time. Darren, how you been?
Not too bad. Sorry, work ran a little bit late today, guys. Super bad.
I was gonna say, look like you had to clock in some overtime. Still, you didn't get a chance to take your jacket off, brother. I feel you.
Long days, man. Long days.
So, Darren, I don't know if you were able to catch the last win of the rundown, but I guess I'm gonna throw the first question out to you, which is, Josh McCown joining his 12th and possibly final team with the Houston Texans. He's backing up Deshaun Watson. How beneficial, if at all, can Josh McCown be to this squad?
So you gotta understand, Josh McCown is gonna be good to the squad no matter what. He got team leadership. He's been in the league for 12 different teams at this point. The guy knows what he's doing. He's a veteran that is well respected around the league as well. Just having him in there is always going to help, no matter what. So I don't see a problem with having him on, especially as a practice squad guy. And it's always something new that Deshaun Watson can learn.
Darren, do you have some dogs running around back there? Yeah, no, that's I figured, man. It's all right. It's all right.
Dogs, man. It's always the dogs, man. You gotta love it though. There's so much energy, man. So much love.
Chris, I want to ask you now, man. Your team, the Eagles, have had its fair share of good pass rushers over the years. Nigel Bradham, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham, I think it is. So a quality pass rushers when you see them. J.J. Watt, obviously a quality pass rusher, still 31, relatively young for a guy on the defensive side. He has 2 years left on the contract, but it's a huge cap hit, $17.5 million for the Texans. Do you think next year is the year that we don't see J.J. Watt on the Texans anymore?
Yeah, well, you brought up a really good point about his age. However, the amount of injuries that he suffered, especially over these past several years, and even to the later stages, it makes his body a lot more older than what he is. But as far as considering that the cap is going to go significantly down next year, and the only 2 teams that are probably going to be in good cap situations, which is New England and Indianapolis, I don't see a team willing to take on that contract. I think, if anything, if Houston's going to have significant cap issues, their teams are probably just going to wait out for J.J. Watt to get cut before opting to, get his services.
And and with that being said, we're moving on to our opting up to his services, and he could certainly be a formidable piece for a playoff team, not just this year but next year. But right now, teams are losing players left and right, not only just to the injury bug, but to the COVID bug as well. And Avery, I guess that's why I want to toss it to you right there, man. A huge spike in COVID cases around the NFL today, not like we've seen this year in a single day. Do you think the situation is finally starting to get that ball rolling in terms of being out of control, or is it just an anomaly that might calm down going forward?
Well, quickly, I want to touch on the Watt situation. I just want to say, like, I agree with Chris that the injuries kind of have aged him more than his actual age is. But I just don't understand why Atlanta wouldn't trade Tack for JJ, because, you know, you get a young pass rusher and then you get a JJ Watt veteran pass rusher. I mean, the cap hit for Atlanta would suck, but at the same time, they need a pass rush. But anyway, yeah, as far as the COVID thing, I don't think that it's going. I think this is an anomaly. I don't think that it's going to get out of hand. I think that the NFL is doing a pretty decent job with how they're handling everything, moving games around, with the players not being able to play or practice or in different things like that. I mean, typically we're only seeing 1 or 2 players a week, and then, you know, once they find out, obviously those players are removed. And even if it's a contact thing, even if it's like you were in close contact, you have to isolate as well. So and they don't even let them play in the game. So, for example, I believe Williams from the Packers, he doesn't have COVID, but he came in close contact with AJ Dillon, so he's out for this game tonight. And so I think the NFL is doing a pretty decent job with everything that's going on. I don't think that's going to run rampant. At the same time, with cases spiking up, if it does run rampant, I'm not going to be surprised. It'll be interesting to see how the NFL handles it, because, like I said before on this podcast multiple times, you expanded the practice squad roster limits for a reason. Mm-hmm. So for me, I've yet to see a team or the NFL kind of stick by that. I mean, we've seen them move games, we've seen them cancel games, we've seen them postpone games, we do all of those things. This is technically the first game we're seeing that is still on, even with star players, you know, contracting COVID or being out of the game. It's the first game that we're seeing that they're actually, you know, going to play this game. So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see. And, you know, what we have and what's been amazing so far is that, you know, despite all the, like, we've seen star players go down with COVID, we've seen star players go down with injury, but like the truly elite players have still been able to maintain good health, both in injury and staying away from COVID. And that rolls me on to my first segment of the day, which is the first half MVP. All right, guys, you know, we're in week 9. It's half of the NFL season so far. And honestly, this is around the time where outlets everywhere start calling their MVP calls now, with Russell Wilson being the front runner at plus 100 in Vegas are his odds to win the NFL MVP. But there are, of course, other candidates. I'm going to give you 5 to choose from. You can give your own if you'd like, but I'm going to give you 5. I'm going to give you first, of course, is the Seahawks quarterback, Russell Wilson, the Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, the Packers quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And no, I'm not going to stick the quarterbacks on this list permanently, you guys. I'd love to, but that's not fair to anyone. I'm going to give it to the next one, to running back for the Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook, and wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to throw it over to our guest for today, Mr. Chris Thomas, on who he thinks is his first half of the season MVP.
To quote one of the greatest of all time, Deion Sanders, my first half MVP is Russell Wilson. I mean, when you look at what Russell Wilson has been able to do, I mean, yes, he has Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf has transformed himself into, at least at the very minimum, a tier 2 wide receiver. You're kind of seeing like a brand new Terrell Owens out there. But also when you look at what he has to deal with in terms of the running back situation, the running backs has been hurt. A lot of players on defense, they can't even get a significant pass rush going, and Jamal Adams has also been hurt. So it's been Russell Wilson's gameplay that has kept Seattle afloat as of right now the best team in that NFC just by record wise.
I'll make that argument in a bit, Jerome, about Derrick Henry. In the meantime, like we'll focus back on Russ over here. Like, first off, Wilson is on pace to get 50 touchdowns this year. All right, the 4th quarterback in NFL history to do so. He is one of the most accurate ball throwers in the league. He having thrown on target 83% of the time, and he has led Seattle to 6 wins this season, despite his own defense allowing 28.4 points per game. So you're absolutely right, Chris. He is cooking. Russ is cooking out of his mind. Avery, your argument next. Out of the 5 I presented to you, who is this year's MVP?
All right. So for me, I'm going to go a little off the grid here. Obviously, if the season ends right now, obviously it's probably going to be Russ, right? Based on the numbers. However, I just want to go off the grid on a couple players that I just feel like people are overlooking and their teams are not doing bad. They are playing well as well. I'm going to start with two that are not quarterbacks, and then I'll go to a quarterback. Number one, you just saw it. Derrick Henry is playing out of his mind right now. Now, typically we're used to Derrick Henry coming on late in the year and doing things like that. However, it's been the Derrick Henry show. Everybody knows he's getting the ball, and he's still doing things that I'm like, goodness gracious. I can't understand how he does it. It reminds me of Adrian Peterson's 2,000-yard season where his quarterback, I can't even remember his quarterback's name that year. And he just came off of
Christian Ponder,
and he just came off of
ACL
an injury that ended the season prior. So I'm just like, that's phenomenal.
The only issue I take with Derrick Henry is that he is the current leader in rushing yards this season, but Dalvin Cook has 4 more touchdowns over him, as well as Derrick Henry has an actual defense to back him up whenever the Titans play, as well as Ryan Tannehill, Corey Davis, and Tony Brown actually producing. So
my issue is the fact that your best ability is your availability. Derrick Henry's been there every game. Dalvin Cook hasn't. So that's the reason that I would
probably 10 touchdowns, Jerome. What do you mean?
So that's the reason I would take Henry over Cook in the MVP race. Number 2 would be Alvin Kamara, who's balling out of his mind as well. Obviously, his team isn't playing extremely well, but Alvin Kamara is phenomenal. Now let's get to the two quarterbacks. Let's not forget that Ryan Tannehill is playing very well. He has one of the highest completion percentages in the league right now. He's not turning the ball over. He's playing at a very high clip. And did we forget that the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated since Ben Roethlisberger came back? Obviously, he's comeback player of the year so far, but the guy is undefeated. Now, I understand he has a better defense than Russell does. He has probably a more consistent running game as well, but he doesn't have the weapons on the outside that Russ has. He's got Juju and Claypool, who are nowhere near a Lockett and
Washington and Samuel.
Do not do that. Those are
guys, come on. Claypool had a 4-touchdown game this past year.
Again, now Claypool is a problem. Do not get me wrong, but is Claypool a problem or is Big Ben really that good?
Because look, we can discuss the Big Ben situation all day, but just pick one. Out of all of them, just pick one.
I'm going to go with Big Ben.
All right, Big Ben is your choice. I'll respect it. Darren, I want to give you your floor now, man. Who's your midseason MVP? And I swear, if you say Lamar Jackson, I will hang up on you.
No. Oh man, I was not expecting that, but I should have. It's definitely not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson got some kinks to work out this season. He seemed like he wants to turn the ball over for some reason this season, which is very uncharacteristic of him. But for me, it got to be Russ. I like what Avery was saying, though. Alvin Kamara has been balling this season. When you look at the stats just for Kamara alone, he's second in the league when it comes to receiving, basically. For a running back, and he's almost at, I think he's at 560 over. At receiving for a running back. And not only does he have that, but he's over 400 rushing. The guy is on pace to beat things that Marshall Faulk has done. And when you talk about the guy and you hear someone that is Coach Marshall Faulk and they're saying this guy is scarier than him, you got to have him up there. You got to. And I'm really big on Kamara right now because of some things. I
would take that with a grain of salt, mainly because, Bruce Arians said that about him. That's respect. But Bill Belichick said they're better this year than they were last year. And Chris Jones said that the Jets are actually a better team. So when it comes to comments and compliments in the media, consider me hesitant in that department, gentlemen. And with that being said, like for me, my pick for MVP, I'll just make it really quick. I want to give it to a wide receiver because there hasn't been a wide receiver MVP in a while. I think Jerry Rice was the last one that won it, I believe. And I gotta give it to DeAndre Hopkins, man, because DeAndre Hopkins has been an elite weapon for the Arizona Cardinals. True, the touchdown production isn't there. He only has 3, but he has been Kyler Murray's safety blanket. He's been one of the main reasons why the Cardinals are stretching and going the way that they are. Right, and this is a run first team. Kyler Murray is a quarterback that can throw, but runs when he wants to. And they try to focus with Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds as their main running weapons, but DeAndre Hopkins adds a deep threat element to the Cardinals that they haven't had in a long time.
I can't agree with DeAndre Hopkins as MVP. I understand the premise, and I think he's playing out of his mind. Do not get me wrong, but MVP, I'm not sure. Only because I've seen games where DeAndre Hopkins goes off and they still lose. Typically, if Alvin Kamara goes off, they're winning. If Dalvin Cook goes off, they're winning. If Ben goes off, they're winning. If Russ goes off, they're winning. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't affect the game in the way that these guys do, in my opinion, but I understand the premise.
Well, I just wanted to add a little bit of non-QB sizzle into the discussion. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next discussion of the game of the day, which is quarterback hot seat. All right, guys. As great as there's, the saying is there are 8 billion people on this planet. You can't find 32 competent enough to play quarterback on a consistent level. Well, that is true. That is a true thing to say in this league, especially with the amount of bad quarterbacks that we have in it. Now, I have 5 to 6 quarterbacks on this list that I want to offer to you guys for your critique on who should be under the most pressure and who's seeing their way out of their respective teams this year. For the first one, I got Derek Carr with the Oakland Raiders. I got Kirk Cousins with the Minnesota Vikings, Daniel Jones with the New York Giants, Sam Darnold with the New York Jets, and a combination, Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles for the Chicago Bears. And with that being said, I'm throwing it over to Darren first.
So when it comes to pressure, are we talking just pressure of making it to the playoffs, pressure to succeed? Because when you're talking about pressure, there's a lot of teams under pressure right now. But for me, the one that's under the most pressure overall would have to be Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins just got a new deal. He's just went 2-5 now. He won and had a really great game, but it wasn't really a good game for him. It was a Dalvin Cook game. The guy has been up and down all season. He's been having his team in bad situations. I know it's a younger team, but Kirk Cousins, they paid you all that money. It's all guaranteed. And you had it set up for a while now for you to win, but you were not able to do it. I know they traded Stephon Diggs, but Justin Jefferson has been coming on them lately. These guys need to get it together, so this way they can show that the Vikings still have that window open, at least for the next 2 to 3 years.
And unfortunately, Cousins has signed a 2-year contract with the Vikings going into this season, so they got a fat contract under their ceiling, unfortunately. And, we saw last week, in the last 2 weeks, that when Cousins throws the ball, the Vikings lose. But when he's limited as a quarterback, when he's only limited to just 14 passing attempts, they win. I mean, look what they did against the Packers last week. He only threw the ball 14 times, and they still won on the back of Dalvin Cook. Another reason why, I put him over MVP over Derrick Henry. Chris, your pick for a quarterback under the most pressure.
I think it's a tie for me. I think it's, the quarterback combination of Trubisky and Foles and Derek Carr in Oakland, because we all know how much lip service when John Gruden does in regards to saying how much he likes Derek Carr. However, if they are not if they don't make it's a 7-seed team playoffs now, if they don't at least get one of those playoff seeds, then I could definitely see Gruden, definitely using one of those draft picks that he's been accumulating talent over the years. He's got Josh Jacobs, Max Crosby. He's building a bunch of guys, like a bunch of those Gruden grinders. So if Derek Carr continues to just be pedestrian, he's not a terrible quarterback by any means, but he's just not that quarterback that's going to get you over the hump, and he hasn't been since 2016. Unfortunately, he got the injury that kind of sidelined him for their only playoff appearance back in 2002. But I could definitely see if they don't make the playoffs, I could see Gruden definitely drafting a quarterback in the first round. And as far as Chicago goes, Trubisky didn't pick up his option. Nick Foles can void his contract at the end of the year. And as long as Matt Nagy has been there, he inherit Mitchell Trubisky and inherit Nick Foles. He never really had a say in terms of what quarterback he wants to run his system. So I feel like if the Bears don't continue to maintain like a playoff push, they're outside of the playoffs, then both those quarterbacks are going to be gone. I could definitely see the same thing with Las Vegas is Matt Nagy finally gets to, alongside with Ryan Pace, finally pick a quarterback for his system.
That's still Chicago. But I do want to throw you a curveball real quick. Jerome just brought it up. Carson Wentz. I mean, he might have the Eagles in place in the division, but it is I think it's a 3-4-1 record so far. So what do you think? Elaborate, man.
If the Eagles want to trade Carson Wentz, that's over a $70 million cap hit they're going to take. He's not going anywhere. And regardless of how bad their division is, they're on pace to make the playoffs. So I don't see a scenario in which they're going to trade away all of that money, take away all that dead cap money just to play Jalen Hurts. And as far as Jalen Hurts is playing this season, obviously I feel like a lot of it's also on, I think just overall, just in terms of Howie Roseman and his coaching staff, they fail both these quarterbacks because everybody knows when Jalen Hurts gets the ball at the 2-yard line for a 2-point conversion, it's going to be an option run. They don't give Jalen Hurts enough to, in terms of trying to mix it up, in terms of like doing passes, kind of like a Taysom Hill. So I don't see Carson Wentz going anywhere. I think for better or for worse, Doug Peterson is going to be sticking with Carson Wentz because if there was an opportunity to pull him, it would have been that Sunday night game in which he turned the ball over 4 times to a Dallas defense that got 3 turnovers combined all season long before that Sunday night game.
And now we move on to like Avery on the bottom, man. I gave you a list. Two New York City quarterbacks on this list, although to be honest, New York has just been a failure of a city combined when it comes to football. So let me ask you, man, like who is a quarterback that's the most under pressure?
So just want to speak with Carson Wentz thing, and I'll just say this quickly. Carson Wentz has had no offensive line this year. He's not on the hot seat. Now, if he had his full offensive line and he was still playing as bad and yada yada, he has no offensive line. He has no protection. Yes, Carson needs to get the ball out of his hands faster. They need to get some more check down screens, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, he's not under the hot seat because of that. For me, I think it's tied as well, like Chris said, but just not with the Bears. I think with the Bears, that's a situation that just who knows. There was a question in the chat: who's the best Bears quarterback in the last I think it was 20 years. I think the answer is probably Jay Cutler. It's really that's really how bad their quarterback situation has been. So to me, that's not a hot seat. That's kind of more of a given there. So a hot seat for me, I would say, but is between as Chris said, Derek Carr, and then I'll say Sam Darnold. The reason is obviously, to all Chris's points as far as with the Raiders, he's just not playing. Outside of that Saints game this year, it's just been it's been weird with Derek Carr. It's like he has moments where you're like, yeah, that's the Derek Carr we saw from 2016. And then he has these moments where it's just like a lull. And it's like, I think Chris used the perfect word, very pedestrian. So I think he may be on the hot seat, especially because they have a pretty solid team, especially on offense. They've got some young talent over there. Obviously, Gruden's, trying to build that defense up. So I think that, he could be on the hot seat. Sam Darnold, unfortunately, is on the hot seat. I say unfortunately because you see things from Sam where you're like, man, this dude really has the tools to be really successful in this league. It's just the Jets organization is not good. Adam Gase is horrible. I don't care what anybody says. He's the reason that I would say, a big part of the reason that Sam is playing so bad. Adam Gase is just not a good coach. Point blank, period. I don't care what you say. The reason I picked him over the other New York quarterback is because again, what we saw from Daniel Jones on Thursday night, he's proven this guy is like, you get him some talent around him, and Daniel Jones is going to succeed.
But that's the same argument you can make about Sam Darnold.
Exactly.
Around him and good coaching. Joe Judge is a good coach.
Oh, for
You've
sure.
seen that, like, it's produced for this team. I get that. It's basically essentially Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones are basically the same quarterback. Flashes of excellence when they play, but they're just not consistent to do so. And with that being said, like, I know you want to finish up your thought on that.
I just want to say, just only I would say Sam Darnold doesn't finish as well as Daniel Jones does. That's the only reason that I would say Sam Darnold more than Daniel Jones.
All right, Darren, real quick, I know you want to say something.
So I want to comment on the Carson Wentz thing. I think Carson Wentz is under the same type of pressure as Lamar Jackson almost right now with the turnovers. Those guys are turning over the ball at an extremely alarm rate. You got to think, when those two guys are at their best, they're methodically moving down the field, and they're getting the ball out of their hands with ease. And that's not been happening for Lamar Jackson. It's not been happening for Carson Wentz. It may be for different circumstances, but those two guys got to figure out the turnover battle and figure out how to utilize their people the best way possible. Carson has random parts, but Lamar.
I'll add one more name here just for myself because, like, it just came to me right now, and I'm surprised it didn't come up to me when I was doing pre-show. But Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a quarterback under pressure for the New England Patriots. For one, yes, like Bill Belichick was right. He sold out this team for the past 20 years to get the championship. I'm not saying that Tom Brady was essentially the thing that brought it together, but he was a big enough part to make a difference. Cam Newton, for all that he is, he's a great player, great guy overall, great personality, and a great leader. The only issue is that, yes, that with what Avery said earlier, they're not using Cam right when it comes to, like, the system that he's in. Yes, it's a run-heavy offense, but Cam's more than a runner. He can pass when you give him good short yardage situations and better short yardage weapons to use from. N'Keal Harry is not a good weapon. I can't even think of the other Patriots wide receivers that's that bad up in New England. And for Cam, he is under pressure because this was supposed to be a comeback year for him. He was touted as a quarterback that was supposed to, help maintain the consistent Patriots dynasty with a new offensive scheme and play style, but it just hasn't culminated as such. And I hate to say it, but Monday night is a must-win game for the New England Patriots against an 0-8 Jets team. And as a guy who's actually who's actually cheering for a tank job and wanting Trevor Lawrence to be a Jet, Cam Newton has got his game up going forward. And with that being said, we're moving into our final segment of the week, which is game picks for week 9. Game picks and hot takes. I love this segment so much because this is the part of the segment where we all just get angry at each other and just throw insults. And, I know that Chris and Avery both are primed with theirs, and I'm waiting for whatever this argument they have. But before it goes into that, I want to give it to Darren first so he can have his pick of the litter before I throw it off to the heavy round matchup I got right
here. All right, guys. So I want to first off say an apology. 350 was a little bit overeager for myself last week.
You think?
But I had an optimistic chance of Lamar Jackson doing well if he knew how to keep the ball on his side. If you've seen that game, he was doing well moving the ball. He just had a turnover issue, which killed so many drives. But this week, we got a lot of good games. But I'm going to be very obvious with mine. It got to be Tampa Bay and the Saints. One, we're getting to see AB come out. And what's that going to look like with Tom Brady and the weapons that they have over there? And it's Chris Godwin when he play. And what's the role going to look like with the disbursement for the targets? And then you got to think, Michael Thomas might be back this week. So what would that look like for the Saints now? We're having almost all of their pieces back, especially if Emmanuel Sanders can get healthy within the next 2 weeks or so. These two teams are going to be battling for it. And it's always a good fight when they come together. It's always a good fight when the NFC South guys come together. They know how to play in the division. Just saying. So the hot take though, this one is a little bit conditional, and it's only because I want to see everyone play. Everyone is healthy. Everyone plays. Everyone's healthy and everyone plays. These guys run it up. There is no defense in this game, and the only defense that gets played is by the Bucks, who get the final stop at the goal line. This thing's going to be a shootout, man. Seriously, if everyone plays, it's going to be a shootout. 45-42.
Oh,
45-42.
Sing a field goal score to determine it. You know what? I'll sprinkle some chili powder on there, my man. That is spicy for me. That is spicy. All right, Darren, great pick. I'm glad we were able to give you the mic first, which means now that the heavyweight matchup between Chris and Avery has a bill to look up to. So, you know what? I'm just gonna give it to Avery first on the first punch, just to see what he does with it.
I'm gonna go pretty subtle here. I'm gonna keep it simple. There's a slew of games that are going to be phenomenal. 49ers Packers, that's going to be phenomenal. Bills Seahawks, 6-1 versus 6-2, that's going to be great. Ravens Colts, that's going to be a game for the ages. I mean, the Colts, that defense is playing lights out. Darius Leonard, shout out to him, HBCU grad, man. I listen, man. I'm going to be excited to see that game. I really can't truly pick what's going to be my game of the week, man. I'm just going to go with, and again, Dolphins Cardinals. That's going to be a game, and I slightly have the Dolphins potentially winning the game, man. That's going to be phenomenal. But I think for me, I'm going to go Patriots Jets. I know that sounds crazy. But again, this is a Monday night game. It's prime time. We're going to be the only teams playing that game that night, so everybody's going to be watching. We're going to see some phenomenal throws as we see every week from Sam Darnold, and I think
people will be watching.
Okay. And I think it's just going to be a phenomenal game. Like I said, it's a must-win for Cam. Speaking of, and I just feel like part of me feels like, are they sabotaging his career? I mean, you cut Mohamed Sanu, the guy that he really, truly had a connection with in the offseason. Julian Edelman's obviously been hurt. It's been weird. Obviously, players opted out and everything, but it makes me wonder. And then with Bill Belichick's comments and everything after that, I'm just wondering if they're sabotaging his career. But my hot take for that game, Cam Newton throws 5 touchdowns. He does not rush for any.
He throws 5 touchdowns.
Where he getting these 5 touchdowns?
He's throwing 5 touchdowns.
He's throwing. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman out there. Kelsey.
He's throwing 5 touchdowns. Count 1, 2, 3.
Avery.
No, Darren. Chris, rebuttal.
Who's he throwing it to? Is he throwing it to Darren, Darius, or Juan? I really don't understand. Like, how's he getting 5 touchdowns?
I can get a 1.
But that is an interesting game because depending on the outcome of that, if the Jets do win, then the Patriots, in my opinion, are in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. But as far as my game of the week goes, I have a tough time deciding between either the Bills and the Seahawks and today the Thursday night game between the Packers and the 49ers. The 49ers are completely decimated by injuries right now, but Aaron Rodgers doesn't care about any of that. He suffered a really humiliating loss last week to the now 2-5 Minnesota Vikings. They need this win to get back on track to keep pace on winning the division. So, in my opinion, I have to pick this as the game of the week because even still then, even with the injury-riddled 49ers team, the 49ers historically has always gotten the better of Aaron Rodgers. So, my hot take for that, it's not really much of a hot take for the game. It's for the offseason. This is Jimmy Garoppolo. This is the last time you're seeing Jimmy Garoppolo in a 49ers uniform, and you're going to see a reunion of Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan next year.
Okay. Avery, let it rip.
You are bugging. You're bugging again. So you were talking about the cap hit that the Eagles will have with Carson Wentz. It's an even bigger cap hit with Matt Ryan and the Falcons. They're not going to release him. They're not going to trade him. We don't want Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not going to happen. Matt Ryan, if he was going to be traded, it would have been done this year. He's not going to be traded again. And as well, you got to remember, he's 35 years old and he's not getting younger. He's going to be a cap hit, and he's an older quarterback. The way the league is transitioning as well is toward those mobile quarterbacks. If you're going to go get a quarterback, you're going to go in the draft and get a quarterback and find somebody like that. But you're not going to go and get Matt Ryan. That's just not going to happen. And Matt Ryan's not leaving Atlanta in that fashion. It's just not happening.
Okay, I'm just saying the last time we saw Matt Ryan as arguably the best quarterback in the NFL was when Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. That's also the last time you guys made a significant postseason run. So I could see at least Atlanta getting like a second and a few mid-round picks. Atlanta needs to blow that up because as soon as Dan Quinn left the door, it's me like, listen, fire sale everybody, even with the cap hits. Like, I understand the cap hit's like the biggest thing and all, but you got to get rid of Matt Ryan. You got to get rid of Julio Jones and just start over. Get Justin Fields, rebuild that offensive line, rebuild that defense. Listen, stop being afraid to rebuild, man. Just blow it up. Let it go.
Okay, no. Now you're tripping. You're being an Ohio State fan. If we're going to draft somebody, it's not going to be Justin Fields. I can tell you that much. Number one.
It'll be Trey Lance or Zach Wilson.
There is no blow it up. Calvin Ridley is only in his third year. Julio Jones is obviously getting older as a receiver. But now you've got Hayden Hurst, you've got Todd Gurley, you've got 5 former first-round picks on the offensive line. The defense is still pretty young. There is no blow this team up. AJ Terrell is a rookie. You've got a third-year starter as the other corner in Oliver. You got Keanu Neal, who's in his fifth year. Rico's the oldest dude on the defense, and he's not even 30 yet. You don't blow that team up. You get the pieces around that team to make them a formidable team. Like I said, get a pass rush, a J.J. Watt. Get somebody on the defense, like they just drafted Marlon Davidson, who we haven't been able to see because he's been injured, and now he's got the COVID. So it's just like you don't blow that team up. You're bugging.
I'm talking about the older players. Get rid of the older players. I'm talking about the Julio Jones. I'm talking about the Matt Ryans, where you can get significant draft capital so you guys can be cool.
Okay.
Bring in a rookie.
No, all right, enough. Both fighting for your corners right now. Take a ding ding. Take a ding ding, the ding the ding. We're coming there.
Everybody wants to have
no, Avery, you've said your piece enough. Back up. Don't make me have to play ref ball here. All right. Now, all right, guys. That was one heck of a boxing match. I'm not going to call a winner. I'll let either Darren or Jerome call the winner on that one. But I'm just going to give my game pick for tonight. And first off, before I do, I just want to give my Thursday night pick out of the way. Of course, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers, and I'm going that they're going to blow out the 49ers decimated squad. They're tough and they do what they can, but this is an angry Aaron Rodgers coming off of a divisional loss. You cannot stop that. All right. And now my game pick for the week, I am going with Darren's team. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts against the Baltimore Ravens. All right, so Baltimore has been going through some woes, man, and I mean woes. Lamar has regressed in the game against the Steelers. He looked like the rookie version of himself. He completed 46% of his passes for 208 yards. He was sacked 4 times. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. One of them was for a pick 6, along with 2 fumbles. All right, Ronnie Stanley out of the year because of an ankle injury. One of the top defensive weapons in Marlon Humphrey got COVID. And now one of their top offensive weapons, supposedly top in Hollywood Brown, is complaining on Twitter that he is not getting enough targets from Lamar Jackson. So much, and it's kind of like you want to use your soldiers, as he said, but I just. It's a bad situation when players are starting to call other players out on Twitter, and Ravens are supposed to be a top tier organization when it comes to handling interior drama. But that being said, though, the Ravens are still a formidable team to go up against. They still lead the league in total rushing yards and rushing yards per game. They are scoring 29 points per game as an offensive unit. That is near wonderful for a run first team. Their defense top 6. They're 7th against the rush, 10th against the pass, and they've managed to have a +3 turnover differential as a unit. So clearly, this is still a dominant team, but it is a get-right game that comes right when Phillip Rivers comes off one of the best 2-game stretches of his year. Okay, Phillip Rivers, he's been playing a lot better the past couple of weeks, albeit against terrible teams, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Detroit Lions. He's had 633 passing yards, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception against the Bengals and the Lions. Nyheim Hines took over for injured Jonathan Taylor and just balled against the Lions, man. That beautiful spin touchdown that he had and the 2 backflips he had in the end zone. Like, dude, that is versatile as it can get. And let's not forget that the Colts have the number 1 defense in the NFL right now. They are 6th against the pass, 2 against the run. So it's the number 1 rushing offense versus the number 2 rushing defense. That is just awesome to see, man, and especially with a healthy Darius Leonard going up against Lamar Jackson. Now, I will say, T.Y. Hilton, their top offensive weapon on that offense, has been mediocre to say the least. 251 yards on 22 catches, no touchdowns. Hines, Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor have a combined 7 touchdowns between them, with Hines having 4 of them, while Taylor is the leading rusher on the team with 350 plus yards. Rivers is carrying this offense, which is not what was supposed to happen during the offseason. It was supposed to be a run-first team with a good defense, and Rivers playing game manager. So far, he's had to become the gunslinger that people don't want him to be. And, you know, I'm going to give my hot take. Well, I already gave my first hot take, which was for tonight's game. My second hot take involves this game, which is combined Lamar Jackson and Phillip Rivers are going to throw 5 interceptions, with Lamar throwing 3.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Even my dogs don't like that. My dogs don't even like that hot take, man. That's not even right there.
You got to look. Lamar is dressing as a passer this season. All right, he is still a run-first quarterback. All right, and, last year was an awakening for the Lamar Jackson show, but it is just the same thing that they're doing this year. I've learned to defend against it, and I still say Baltimore win this game by their defense, not their offense.
So I'm gonna say this real quick. The reason why I didn't mention Baltimore today as the game of the week is the defense still don't know who's going to play, because you had some of our main guys actually getting out on defense, including Matthew Judon, including Patrick Quinn, including Marlon Humphreys on that defense. Those are guys that are main contributors on our defense. That's the reason why we're doing so well. And on top of that, I think Lamar has 2 problems right now. One, his turnover problem. I've already spoken on this. But number 2, Greg Roman has to extend that passing game. The passing game is built off of only running. So when running's not working, the passing game does not work. He needs to build a passing identity where we can drop back if need be and win a game. Lamar can throw the ball. We all know that. He knows how to throw accurately. But the problem is there's no true identity, which means it's harder for people to get open and do what they need to do. If there's simple passing concepts, run.
All right. I know Darren has a problem with my pick. That's fine. What about Chris? What do you think of my take?
These guys are among one of the top turnover-prone quarterbacks, so it's not really that much of a hot take. It seems more on par.
Ooh, okay. Avery?
Sounded like a little shot there, Chris. But no, I don't agree with the hot take. Lamar's not throwing 3 picks. He's going to be more conscious of taking care of the ball. If anybody's going to throw 3 picks, it's going to be Phillip, but I don't think he's going to do that either. I think it's going to be a tight, tough game, and it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I think that might be really a great game, like one for the ages. We'll see it, though.
I know that tonight's boxing match was between Chris and Avery, but Darren and I will always go blow for blow when it comes to Lamar Jackson.
It's cool. I'm still waiting for that Bengals game, man. I want to see you when they lose.
Can't wait, because I will swear to you that Lamar Jackson will throw 3 picks on that game too. But for now, I'm ending today's podcast. All right, so guys, first off, thank you for joining us here at the Air It Out Podcast. Remember, guys, for this podcast, whether you want to stream it live or watch it afterwards or listen to it, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, Inside the Hashes, or on our website, InsideTheHashes.com. You can also check us out on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on Anchor, wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Inside the Hashes is there. You can also check us out on social media. On Instagram, we are at Inside the Hashes. On Twitter, we are at Inside Hashes. And on Facebook, we are Inside the Hashes, the football group. You can also join our Discord, you guys. We want to talk football to you just as much as you want to trash talk to us, whether it's high school football, college football, the AFL, the CFL, or the NFL in general. Like, man, we want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to discuss. Come on, join us. Come on and talk to us. Come on and fight with us, even. All right. For Jerome Jones, for Darren Braxton, for Avery Collins, for our guest, Christopher Thomas, thank you for joining us here today. Chris, guys, just remember, like, if you want to check out Chris's podcast, the Run It Back podcast on 98.5 Philly Radio. You listen to it at 5 o'clock every Tuesday. My name is Juan Pablo Gordon Camargo. This was the Air It Out Podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. We'll see you next time.
Matt Ryan for president.
Hashtag trade Matt Ryan.